to me to come back something like 15 to 17 years later, especially in Abuja, where I spent a few months. It was with a different president, and it was in a very different context, and I'm not sure at that time I totally imagined to come back in such a condition. Anyway, I'm extremely delighted to be here in this country. First of all, because I think that's a very peculiar visage of Africa, with a very proud country, very energetic, with a lot of cultures, where a lot of the African challenges are at stake, in fact. When you speak about new equilibriums, about multiculturalism, when you speak about potential conflicts between culture, but ability to build a common project amongst different culture, when you speak about migration, counter-terrorism, relaunching agriculture and so on, you speak about Nigeria. And that's a sort of a small Africa, which is here at stake. Being in your country after visiting China, India is being in one of the most emerging countries in the world, in economic and demographic terms. And that's why this country is very important to France and very important to me. It's also speaking about a country where the democratic experience is a great example in Africa. Your election in 2015 was one of the best examples of an unexpected election, I have to say, Mr. President, where a lot of people thought everything was written before. Democracy is never written before. I'm as well probably a good example of that. and I do believe that next year will be an incredible occasion to deliver a consistent message to the rest of the world and the rest of Africa. So for me, the bilateral relation is as well a cornerstone of a regional relation, dealing with Nigeria, dealing with ECOWAS and the whole Africa. First of all, our bilateral relation is obviously framed by security issues. We discussed with Mr. President about our common fight against Boko Haram and the current war. I reaffirmed the French commitment alongside with you and our willingness to contribute to your efforts in terms of intelligence, but as well specific contribution you would request. Our willingness to help the 4 countries working together against Boko Haram. You know our strong commitment and our presence in Sahel, and we discussed with Mr. President about our willingness as well to better coordinate these 2 common efforts against terrorism. We want as well to be more present in terms of stabilization in North and Northeast. That's why we decided to invest $75 million in stabilization in this region through the French Agency for Development. Second, we want to do more in economy. Your economy is so important and it's huge. We have a lot of French companies present on the ground in building mats, real estate, obviously oil and gas, transportation and infrastructures and so on. But I want France to be much more present for small and medium enterprises and in different sectors like digital. We launched Digital Africa, which is now a great initiative allowing entrepreneurship to accelerate, to develop themselves, because it provides new opportunities to young people, and that's the best way as well to provide jobs, obviously, and an actual growth, inclusive growth for our people. I want Digital Africa to be obviously much more present in Nigeria, but I want as well our leaders, our business leaders, working much more together. That's why we will launch tomorrow this Franco-Nigerian Business Forum, and I hope, Mr. President, we will follow up together this initiative where we will put together some dozens of business leaders on both sides. And I'm sure that we'll find good ideas for our economies and good projects we will accompany and follow up. Speaking about economy as well as speaking about mobility and how to help people to obviously travel in the region, but as well between our two countries in order to develop their projects, and I want us to be much more present in this field. And last but not least, I want us together to develop a much more important relation on culture and sport. I think it's not something marginal. And we probably underestimated during the past years the importance, especially for our young people, of culture and sport. I delivered a speech a few months ago in Ouagadougou saying how the cultural relation between France and key countries in Africa were, for me, very important. And in a new way to proceed, in a new mood, I would say, i.e. promoting much more the African culture, speaking for itself and promoting itself. We will launch the cultural season. We will organize in 2020 in France the African cultural season this evening at a shrine with Mr. Kuti and some of your people involved in music, fashion, obviously movie, and Nollywood will be very present as well. And I think it's very important. It was not sufficiently supported by French people and probably not sufficiently known in France. And one of the perspectives to me is precisely to promote these artists and this energy. First, to provide another face of Africa, and especially in Nigeria, in France and Europe. But as well to allow these people to build new bridges between our continents and our countries. Culture will be present tomorrow as well, because we will launch the new Alliance Française in Lagos, which is a very peculiar model because it's financed by a private player, Nigerian private player, and it will be a place to develop French language, French culture in Nigeria in this direct link. And tomorrow we will launch as well with the NBA a strong initiative on sport and sport in Africa, because I think that's a very important message. This pillar on culture, sport is for me very important because it will provide new opportunities for our young people, new way to organize ourselves and cooperate. And I think it's a very good complement to what we do on a day-to-day basis, and the first focus we mentioned, both of us, i.e. security. Because, I mean, security is our day-to-day business, but you will never provide dreams and perspective to our young people with security. At a point of time, why do they choose to go to crazy people and to jihadists and so on? It's because they need opportunities, economic opportunities, but they need dreams, perspective, their own culture. They need to have sort of ownership on new perspective and new dreams. And I do believe it's part of that and what we can provide. So thanks very much, Mr. President, for welcoming us. Thanks very much for being here. And you know that France wants to do much more with Nigeria, but you know as well that in Paris you have a friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you have always several issues correlated, and your question is a good synthesis of that. I mean, first of all, I think the main plan is an African plan. And France is not the one to solve or fix African situations. I mean, this is a past period. So what we want to do, we intervene, and we are still present in Africa and Sahel to fight against terrorism, especially in Mali and in the region. And we will stay as long as it is requested by our friends, and especially Mali, and we discussed yesterday about this issue. But what's important to me is how the African governments in different African countries organize themselves to fight against terrorism and get rid of these people, and especially jihadism. That's why I do accompany and I do promote the G5 Sahel initiative. And I think the forces organized, and where Nigeria is a cornerstone player with Niger, Chad, and Cameroon is very important with Boko Haram. I think first we have to increase the pressure. Yesterday with our friends from G5 Sahel, we worked very hard on the different operations to come. And I think we have to increase the pressure on the operations against this jihadist. We can fix the situation in the coming months, And obviously France will remain present in Sahel as long as they want it. But when I look at the past months, we increased our results and we delivered concrete results in North and West Mali with, for me, positive outcomes. Now, what we have to better understand is why so many people are convinced to join these jihadists and these terrorists. And that's what we discussed. And that's the second part of your questions. Because of sometimes economic or ethnic crisis. And that's where it's very important to build not just a security approach, but a stabilization approach at the same time, to provide new opportunities to these people and convey two messages. Your government will take care of you, provide security. But second, your government can provide opportunities to you. And the best opportunity is not to join crazy people and get a belt of bombs and make crazy things. It's not an opportunity. It's an opportunity not to have any more opportunities. And I think it's very important in that. So that's why I want to accompany all the different leaders and governments whose main objective is precisely to provide an inclusive economic project. I would say inclusive economic and cultural project, where you provide the way for your young people to get education, jobs, but as well to be proud of what you are. I think it's extremely important. Because in a certain way, what we are experiencing today, and Europe is also threatened by terrorism, that's a moral crisis. That's a cultural crisis. So it's not just an issue about security. It's too easy. So that's for me the way to proceed.
Thank you. The second question will come from Omolulu.
First, because I wanted to find a good occasion to come back there. I know the place, and I had some memories about the place. I have to confess, at the time there was no president around, so I hope I would not spoil the party. No, because I think that's an iconic place for a lot of African people and African culture. And I think very often when you speak about African culture in Europe, you speak about those from Africa who succeeded in Europe or in France, which is totally different. Most of the times are not automatically very famous in Nigeria or in Africa. And there is a bias because people who are absolutely not the same. But I have to say, Fela, Femi Kuti and Sean Kuti are very famous even in France and Europe. They are big successes. But the Shrine is I think, a cultural hub, an iconic hub. And it was very important for me. It's first a personal pleasure. But that's a way as well to say, with a lot of humility, I recognize the importance of this culture. I recognize the place of this culture in the current environment, in this current world.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first question from the French media will come from Maria Malagadis of Liberation newspaper, Paris.
Between ACME and what's happening in Sahel and Boko Haram and Daesh and ISIS in all the regions. We know the links between these people and the fact that they have the same projects. We know the links in terms of the fact that they provide arms and a lot of connections between people. And originally Boko Haram came from a lot of people coming from ACME and north of Mali as well. And so we have a lot of specificities and specific features in the country by country. But this is a common project. And this is a common project of jihadism and an actual fight against democracies and governments made by these different people we fight against. And that's why I think our top priority is to fix the situation on security and stabilization and to avoid basically having actual connections and a sort of new fire coming from Boko Haram through Sahel region to Libya with direct connection with ISIS. That's the main risk. That's their project. And if we want to kill this project, we have to accelerate what you are doing and what we are doing, our commitments in terms of security, but as well in terms of stabilization, to provide economic opportunities and to provide stability in these different regions.
Thank you very much.
But please convey your...
What we are doing, and the best one, even quoted my Minister of Information, is to remind Nigerians where we were before we came, where we are now, and what we have been able to do in between with limited resources. So you also brought the matter of Libyan problem, the demise of former president who was there for 43 years and trained a lot of people in the Sahel on only how to shoot and kill. You are not trained to be plumbers, electricians, mechanics. So we confronted some of them in Boko Haram, in the northeast, some of them who acquired only the military tradition, not how to build economically or politically, but only how to shoot and kill. So we are very much aware of your vast experience and the fact that you are great influence in our neighbors. We need you all the time to make progress and stabilize our own countries. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The last question will come from Frank.
That's why the shrine survives. If it were not a good idea, people would have forgotten about it since the death of Pelaram Samkuti and the rest of them. People institutionalize it because they value it, and that keeps the young men busy, young men and women very busy. And this is part of the problem of any government. Make sure that where the youth follow, you support it so that you can have some relief from the harassment, let me put it that way. Thank you.
Écoutez, cultural season for Africa in 2020 that we will organize in Paris, in France. And the fact that for me this recognition is as well the fact, this way to say African artists are the one to explain to Europe and French people what their art is, what their perspective is. And this cultural season will be financed by African business people, and especially Nigerian business people, which is unique. It never happened. And I want to rebalance the relation. And I just told our friends that for me Nigeria is a good place where to change, to convert, I would say, this way to look to each other. Because here is not a place where colonialism, French colonialism happened, and your past colonial history is very different from a lot of countries because of the English indirect rules. You preserve your ancient tradition, your tribes, your religion, your own organizations. And I want to rebalance, to convert this way to look to each other from a cultural and imagination point of view. And that's a message I want to convey as well, going to the shrine and saying, this is a very important culture. It does exist. It's here in Africa. It's here in Lagos. Let's promote it.
Thank you very much. We will watch you tomorrow.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this press interaction. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Yes,